Today on Locked On Red Wings, Scotty and I hand out our player awards.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. I'm a podcast producer for the daily DAWG News Radio podcast. Well, Scotty's a host over at Locked On Tigers, as well as a freelance journalist for the Detroit News. And today we're going to take a break from doing player grades, but kind of do something in a similar vein. Scotty and I talked a bit ago about maybe doing some player awards, and we decided that would be fun to bring you. Now, Scotty and I are not going to have a consensus on this. We're going to have our each individual winners because
we might.
We might. I don't know Scotty's and he doesn't know mine. And if we have differing award winners, I mean, hey, that's good conversation starter now, isn't it, Scotty?
It is.
That's good radio, podcasting, whatever.
As they say in the biz, yeah.
Yeah. So we don't know each other's answers, but Scotty, we have 5 awards to give out, and they're not like stock standard best forward, best defenseman, best goalies, but they're like not super out there either. I guess, should we start with the big award or should we work our way towards that?
I think we can kick it off with like our MVP, quote unquote, just because I don't think there's going to be too much disparity there, and then we can get into the rest where, like, you know, there might actually be some differing opinions.
Yeah, so we're going to call this one our Difference Maker Award. And like you said, Scotty, it's essentially our MVP. It's the guy on the team who made the biggest impact. The season, I mean, they missed the playoffs, but this team wouldn't have been as good as it was, in air quotes, whatever you count, but they would have been a lot much worse without this player. This player held this team together and was the reason why they were as close down the stretch as they were to making a playoff appearance, their first since 2016. Scotty, I'm going to throw it to you first, although I'm pretty sure we both have the same guy here. Who is the Detroit Red Wings difference maker in the 2022-2023 season?
Yeah, I mean, this is not only is it Dylan Larkin this year, but it's been Dylan Larkin for 5 years now. I mean, it's not even like he's been putting up this, you know, about a point a game pace for the last 4 or 5 years, but he's been the best player on this team for a while, and this year was no different. And getting the extension done, he's the captain of the team. Career year across the board, either tying or surpassing career highs in pretty much everything. And yeah, this season would have been considerably different without Dylan Larkin on this team. I think that's pretty safe to say for a team that was one of the 4, 5 best. Well, that's very counterintuitive to say, but they were the 4th or 5th highest ranked team to miss the postseason. Like, without Larkin, I mean, you're talking about a team that is probably in the not like the depths of the Ducks or anything in the Bedard watch, but probably is closer to around that bottom 5 to 7 range of draft odds. So yeah, that's pretty comfortably Larkin for me.
Yeah, I mean, there's not really much of a debate here when it comes to your team difference maker / MVP, whatever you want to refer to it as. And Dylan Larkin, like you said, he tied a career high in goals. He tied a career high in assists, but those combined for a new career high in points, 79 points in 80 games played for Dylan Larkin this season. He led your team in 5-on-5 points at 32. He led your team on power play goals with 16. 16 of his goals came on the power play this season, which is incredible.
Yeah,
he just did it all for the Detroit Red Wings. And, you know, when we did the player grades, we gave him an A, so which was deservedly so. You know, you can nitpick things you might want to see get better. This team is substantially worse without Dylan Larkin on this hockey team. And as your captain, I think that you can't ask for much more out of him. I mean, you should be asking for more out of him. But for this season, I think he brought you exactly what you expected. And team MVP, I mean, I don't think there's anyone that even sniffs the realm at which he was at this season. Not to say he's like a S-tier type player, but he was by far the best player on this hockey team. So he's your difference maker without a doubt. This
Yeah.
year, more than any year, there wasn't really much of a debate.
Yeah, no, if you were to go down the line and ask about the impact removing each individual player would have, right, and go down the line of how much worse the Red Wings would be without every player on this roster, I don't think anyone even really holds a candle to the how much worse this hockey team would have been without Dylan Larkin.
Yeah, I mean, in a couple years, I think you can make the case with Moritz Seider. I think
For
Moritz
sure.
Seider is going to be the
I mean,
player
we
on the
hope.
team. Yeah, no, I mean, you hope, but you have a lot of reason to hope. It's
Yeah,
not
no, I
just
mean,
like
he already
on faith.
now he's probably second or third on that list. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think in a couple of years he can be, tie or maybe surpass Dylan Larkin for number one.
Agreed.
But this
Agreed.
season, it's definitely Dylan Larkin. From there, Scotty, who do you want to go to next? You want to do best newcomer?
Sure.
Let's do best newcomer.
I think that's a
So
fun one because it not only incorporates, like people they acquired via trade or whatever, but it also groups in like rookies or call ups or whatever. That's kind of a wide net there.
yeah, absolutely. So it's going to be, as you said, it's going to be anyone they acquired this offseason or called up throughout the season. So that would include guys like technically Marco Casper, Simon Edvinsson, Jonathan Berggren. You can including Alex Chison, Matt Luff, Zarnik, guys who were called up to filler. So best newcomer, Scotty. I'm gonna go first with this one because you went first
Yeah.
with difference maker. I'm giving this one, and I don't know how much. I think there's a couple of really good options for this one, but I'm going David Perron. David Perron, and I almost did Dominic Kubalik because he gave you so much more value than you were expecting as a whole on the season. I know we talked about the two halves of the season for Dominic Kubalik, but as a whole, he gave you 45 points. But in the end, David Perron gave you exactly what you signed him to do, which was second on the team in points this season, on pace with his career totals. He gave you 56 points this year, 24 goals, 32 assists. And he actually, surprisingly, for a guy who you signed to be your power play specialist, he actually led your team in even strength goals, 5-on-5 goals with 15. So not only did he make your power play better, but he brought a potency to your 5-on-5 play that this team hasn't seen. Now, granted, they were still near the bottom of the league in goals for, but that wasn't without David Perron trying. 15 of his 24 goals came at 5-on-5, and he led your team at that marker. I know he had some cold stretches in there, but in terms of guys you brought in that immediately made a difference, he came in and he played exactly what you signed him to do on any line that you slotted him in on. Would be that top line, second line, or third line, or top power play or second power play. He was David Perron, and I think for me, I think you can give him that best newcomer without even questioning it.
Yeah, it was Perron for me as well. The one that I almost gave it to was Andrew Kopp, just because of
That's a controversial one.
I know, and like again, we talked about it a million times over the season. Like he got off to a slow start, and I think a lot of people just point to the fact that he had the injury and didn't get to participate in the preseason a lot and whatnot. So at all, right? Like the first time he really suited up was was opening night. So I think once he kind of got his legs under him, his second half was substantially better, and he started winning more faceoffs. He started playing better defense, and his production just points wise went up as well. So Kopp was kind of in the back of my mind just because, again, if it was like flipped and he had a really hot first half and then the last couple of months were slower, I probably wouldn't view it the same way. So maybe it's just a recency bias thing. But regardless of my opinion of Andrew Cobb's season, I think the answer is pretty comfortably David Perron. He was second on the team in points. I mean, that's
56
pretty much
points.
all. Yeah, like that's pretty straightforward there to me. Like you brought somebody in, and the only person that had a higher point total than him was the captain of your team. That's a point a game player. So yeah, I think it's pretty easy to say that it is David Perron.
I think Oli Mata can be in that conversation as well. Because, as hockey fans, a lot of us tend to focus a lot on point totals. And I mean, it's hard to not point out what David Perron did in his first season with the Detroit Red Wings with 56. But, Oli Mata had himself a hell of a season. 23 points as a defensive defenseman. He brought a little bit of not like a ton of offense, but more than you were expecting. And then, I know the second half of the season after his pneumonia, he battled it out, but the entire team did as well. that first half of the year, he was so much more than advertised on the back end. Defensively, he was just amazing. And I think that if you were going to make an argument for any defenseman to maybe be that best newcomer award, it would have been Oli Mata. So I want to give Oli Mata a shout out as well, just because he's such a good player on the back end. And I think what we saw in the first half before pneumonia is the player that you can expect to next year as well. And that's why they signed him to that extension, a much deserved one. But again, also Dominic Kubalik, in terms of, you got exactly what you were expecting in Kubalik in terms of like offense and defense. He's a shoot first guy, but he gave you 45 points this year, which is way more than I think the Red Wings were expecting to get out of him. Definitely earned his 2-year contract that the Red Wings gave him last offseason. But those are, I mean, they're all honorable mentions. I do think the Cop one, I'm labeling you the Andrew Cop truther. That's what I'm doing. Because, and I don't necessarily disagree with you, but I would not have put him that high on the list, just in terms of, and I know his surgery had a lot to do with it, and he did set a career high in assists, but I think that we still have a lot more to see out of Andrew Copp than what we got this year. So
I agree, but I don't know. I feel like if you're comfortable throwing Oli Mata in the conversation, then I don't think it's ridiculous to throw Copp in there too.
Okay, fair. All's fair. We're gonna take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll do both our most improved players. We have most improved forward and most improved defense.
Yeah.
So when we come back on Locked On Red Wings, but first I got to talk to you guys today about AG1. As soon as I find the graphic, there it is. Our next partner is a product you got to use literally every day. Start taking AG1, because with one delicious scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high quality vitamins, minerals, whole food sourced superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging, all those things. It's lifestyle friendly, whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free, and it contains less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals, or artificial anything, while still tasting good. AG1 was founded when the AG1 was created when the founder experienced a ton of gut health issues, forgive me, and ended up on a complicated supplement routine to recover. It cost him $100 a day. Well, AG1 costs you $3 a day. You're investing in your health, and it's cheaper than your cold brew habit. It's an all-in-one nutritional insurance. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just one scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL Network. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/NHL Network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty and I are doing our player awards. And if you heard our first segment, then you'll know that they're not necessarily like best forward, best defenseman. Although this category does have a forward and defenseman aspect to it, ironically enough. We're going to do most improved player on both sides of the puck. Because while we were talking about this, we realized that we have a bit of a forward bias, which is funny because I always claim I have a defenseman bias. But I guess even I am not immune to the effects of point totals. So we decided to break this one up based on forward and defenseman. Scotty, let's lead off with most improved forward. Who in your mind brought more to the game, more to the team this year than you were expecting?
So I think we do both of these, and I think at the end, really quickly, we try and pick one or the other. Because I feel like forward and defense, like I feel like they're, I don't want to say straightforward, but I would find it pressed to have a different choice than Michael Rasmussen for forward and Jake Wallman for defense. I know I'm jumping the gun there, but like I think that's pretty universal, and they both absolutely deserve it. Michael Rasmussen, obviously a career high in points while only playing in like 55 or 56 games. He absolutely crushed it. He was over a half a point a game player when he got hurt. And yeah, finally, like really utilized his size, which we had all been kind of clamoring for since he was drafted, to be honest. And yeah, like really solidified himself as a bottom 6, middle 6 on this probably current team, and maybe down the road, if the team continues to get better, maybe like a solidified third liner there. for this team. Just really was utilizing his strengths and skills to the best of his ability for the first time in his career. And yeah, it finally just looked like it all clicked, and he was absolutely great. And the loss of him was massive, like absolutely massive when he went down with the injury. So, yeah, I think that you'll be pressed to find someone who there's others that improved for sure. It's not like he's the only guy that took a step forward, but as far as most improved, I think it's pretty hard to find somebody that improved more on the forward core than Michael Rasmussen.
Yeah, I mean, that's again not a debate. Although we should have picked one more controversial so we could fight each other. But yeah, Michael Rasmussen, most improved forward without a doubt. Like you said, he broke his career high in just 56 games played. He previous high was 27 in 80. He got 29 points in 56 this season. And the injury was just the most unfortunate thing because, I mean, there were reports that players in the locker room were lobbying, centers on every line were lobbying to have Michael Rasmussen as their winger because every single line that he played on, he made better and not because of things like his goal scoring ability or, his slick hands and his speed, but because he did the things that every line needs to succeed. He got into the corners. He won the corner battles. He was the first man into the offensive zone chasing down the puck. He went to the front of the net and wasn't afraid, potentially get hit with it, as we saw, in order to deflect or block a shot. Defensively, he was very sound as well. He was not afraid to use his size, and he does actually have a really good shot too. I don't think people recognize that either. This was the Michael Rasmussen that we were told we were getting when he was taking 9th overall. And I know because he was taken 9th overall, which was, let's be honest, still kind of a reach given the draft position when he was taken. But when he was drafted, we were told we were getting a grinded out player in the corners who will put up good minutes on a middle six. And that's the guy we were told and advertised, and that he'd be invaluable to teams because of those intangibles and air quotes. And that's exactly what we got this year. And he was going to crush his career high, his previous career high. I mean, 29 and 56. I mean, he was on pace to just he was in pace to probably get like 40 points this season, which is incredible. Way higher than what he had been getting. And it's just the way it ended. It was such a shame.
Even more than that. He was at what? He was at almost 30 and played 56. I mean,
do we want to do the proration? Let's do that.
I mean, that's like 45, maybe even pushing 50.
He was on pace for 42 points.
Sorry, there you go. I mean, I never claimed to be a math major, but still over 40 points. I mean, that's impressive.
Yeah. So, I mean, most improved without a doubt. And this is we finally got the Michael Rasmussen, and we were told we were going to get back all the way in 2017. It just took him a while to get there because, like Scotty likes to say, progress isn't linear.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, on the defensive side, I don't think there's really even any conversation that it's Jake Wallman. I think that's one of the bigger slam dunks of this entire thing as well. Seider got way better when he was with Wallman, and obviously going into the year, everybody expected kind of probably a slightly bigger step forward from Seider than we ended up getting. But Jake Wallman was not playing or was kind of in that third pairing conversation at the beginning of the season, and by the end of the year he was the bona fide first pairing defenseman with Seider. So I don't even think there's really much of a conversation here. That's a slam dunk.
Oh, there's not. I mean, you could maybe if you wanted to play devil's advocate, you could maybe have a conversation about Moritz Seider because his defensive game, I thought, improved. And that has a lot to do with, I think, the scheme and what they wanted him to do. And that's part of the reason why his production maybe slid back a little bit, along with, the pairing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you could have a conversation about Oli Mata, but you didn't see him as a hockey player in previous seasons, but this year you definitely got more out of him than you were expecting. But they don't even sniff Jake Wallman. Those are if you don't have Jake Wallman on your team, then maybe you have to have a conversation about those other guys. I mean, Jake Wallman, and I did have that internal conversation is this most improved for Jake Wallman, or is this what Jake Wallman was and he never had the opportunity to show it type of situation? Because he always played such sheltered minutes with the St. Louis Blues. But regardless, I mean, this was such a deviation from what us as Red Wings fans were expecting. And as he worked his way up, his play seemingly improved on each consecutive pairing. And then he started playing with Moritz Seider, and it just like boom. There wasn't even by the end of the season, there wasn't even a question of whether or not he's your top pair defenseman.
Yeah, not even a little bit.
And like that doesn't even get into the conversation of like what he brought offensively, at the blue line. The stuff we saw Moritz Seider doing last year, where like guys would challenge him at the blue line and he would just stand tall and get around the player and set up plays. Jake Wallman was doing the same exact thing. Like the amount of times I'd like start getting nervous because like guys would come right at Jake. You like that? They would start coming right at Jake Wallman. And I'm like, dude, you're going to cough the puck up. And he would just make a move to get around them. And now because that player's behind
He had that
him,
hezzy move.
Yeah.
He had that pump fake hezzy move. Yeah.
But then it's a 5-on-4 because that guy's behind you.
Yeah.
You caught him out of position now. I mean, that he brings that in the offensive zone, but then in the defensive zone, if he gets caught, he's got the speed to get back. I mean, we've talked about this so many times and times again. Jake Wallman, without a doubt, is the most improved player on the defensive side. But you want to try and pick one between the two to be the most improved player. That's going to be really tough. One, because we didn't see an entire season of Michael Rasmussen. But what we saw in those 56 games was indisputably, like, I wouldn't say electric, but just I'm trying to find a word here, an adjective to describe what Michael Rasmussen was. He was a rock. He was going to make every line he was on better.
Yeah, I think that's a good descriptor.
But Jake Wallman, he was electric. On the other hand, I mean, he brought like the exciting element to the game. Oh, I don't want to pick one, dude. I don't like that.
I'm going with Wallman.
You are? So then, you know what? For the sake of it, I'll say Michael Rasmussen because you want to know why? I was on the Michael Rasmussen hype train before the season started.
You were.
I said he ended last season so good for the Detroit Red Wings that was him. Like that was who Michael Rasmussen was. It wasn't a flash in the pan. And then he proved it this year. So I'm going to go with Michael Rasmussen since you said Jake Wallman.
Love it.
All right. So my most improved player, Michael Rasmussen. Yours, Jake Wallman. Scotty, we're going to take another quick break. And when we come back, we're going to get to our final award, which if you've ever listened to our episodes, you'll laugh when you hear it because it's a very aptly
named
named
the last
award.
one? Do we really
It's the
not
last
anymore?
one.
Oh,
it's the last one we got to give. So stay tuned to Locked On Red Wings. Segment 3, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty and I are going to give our final award. Scotty, I feel like it's only right that you introduce this one.
This is the well, I mean, if we're calling it our name, this is the he got that dog in him award. Where a player that all of the awards, just in general, like awards are for, the cream of the crop and people that really show out and are kind of whatever in the media a lot, talked about a lot, whatnot. And we like to call everybody on this team a dog. So it's kind of an award of highlighting someone who maybe did not get the attention of the national media or even oh my gosh, I just had a complete.
Hey, I did it last segment. We're all allowed to have it.
Not national media, but local. That's the word. Or even local media. Gone a part of that. So it's just an award to highlight somebody who went out there and grit and grind, that Detroit grit that we love to talk about so much.
So do you want to go first or should I?
I think you should go first.
So you just defined it as grit and grind, and I'm going to take a little bit of a tangent from that. This isn't a grit and grind player in the traditional sense, but a guy who I think at the start of the season we maybe thought was on the outs, like probably was done in a Red Wings uniform. But by the end of the season, we're having a conversation about maybe wanting him back because he brought such an important role to the team. He doesn't get a lot of points, although he wasn't necessarily not getting points this season. But
this is such a good pick.
I'm going to go to Pius Suter.
Yeah, dude.
He's got that dog in him. I almost went to Adam Ernie just because of the fact that Adam Ernie is literally the dog. Like, he is the definition of the dog. Right?
Yeah, well, you took mine. Yeah, Adam Ernie is absolutely my pick. We talked about it, Friday?
Yeah.
Did we just talk about it Friday? How, he had to step up and be the physical player on the most physical player on a hockey team. You know how insane that is? Adam Ernie Adam Ernie in 2023 had to fill in the role and try to be like a physical presence on a NHL level hockey team. And was he like, Adam Ernie the enforcer? Absolutely not. But when looking at what this team desperately needed and was trying to find all year, Ernie, I think did his darndest, and I'll I'll be darned if he's not a dog. That is
He is. I'm not
this
going to deny
yeah,
that.
Adam Ernie is absolutely my pick.
Yeah, and I can't blame you because, like I said, when you look in the dictionary, I forgot the word dictionary for a second there. When you look in the
Dude, we're
dictionary,
really having
it's
a great
it's
day.
a start of the week. Start of the week, man.
Yeah.
When you start the season, or when you look in the dictionary and you look at the definition of DAWG, DAWG, it's a picture of Adam Ernie every single time.
Absolutely.
But I went with Pew Suter, one, because I had a gut feeling you were going to go with Adam Ernie, but also just because, Pew Suter's another type of player who doesn't get the love from
No,
the media.
Pew Suter's a fantastic pick.
And like, he's not going to go around. He's not laying bodies out. He's like 5'11", which is technically undersized for an NHL player. He's only 180 pounds. He's a tiny guy, by NHL standards, but he lays it all out on the ice. And down the stretch, a lot of the times, whatever line he was centering was one of the few lines on the ice that had like a positive expected goals for percentage at 5-on-5 or Corsi 4 or Fenwick, whatever one of those analytics you like to stick your hat on, hang your hat on. Pew Suter's line was the one that had the most favorable metrics. I mean, he's such a sound defensive forward that when he's out there, they might not score, but you're not getting scored on because he's just such a good player. And by the end of the year, I mean, we started the year talking about how he was probably going to be a healthy scratch more times than not last year of his career. Joe Foligno is going to be getting ice time. Michael Rasmussen might be playing center. You have 4 centers down the middle now. He's the odd man out. Well, by the end of the year, and with the help of some injuries, it was like, okay,
Played over 60 games.
Yeah, he's 79 total for him. Last year he played all 82. He was one of 3 players last year to play all 82. This year he played 79. He's reliable. He's defensively sound on a team that doesn't play good defense. And he did have, for what it's worth, 24 points, which is not bad for a middle or bottom 6 center. I know last year he set a career high in points at 36, and this year technically was the least amount of points he had in his 3-year career. But with that being said, a lot of those points for him came after a lot of injuries happened, and he stepped up to the plate and started producing when there wasn't many players left on the team who could produce. So for me, it goes to Pew Suter as he's got that dog in him award. And I kind of want to see Pew Suter back as like your bottom line center.
We've had that conversation a lot, man. I'm fully on the re-sign Pew Suter train. I think he's a good fit.
Well, and you know what? Last offseason, we did the should they stay or should they go topics for both forward and defenseman.
Yeah, we'll definitely get to that when probably when the cup ends, I'd imagine, because that's when like off-season stuff starts. I guess we can do it before.
But. Yeah, our off-season's already off and away.
Yeah.
But yeah, Scotty, that's my pick for
I love it. Honorable mentions.
Oh, it's
Matt Luff, dog.
You love Matt Luff.
Austin Czarnik,
dog. Alex
Robert Haig,
dog.
Alex Jason, dog. Taro Hirose.
Okay, now we're just
named after Taro Hirose, dog.
Now we're just naming this after guys who don't get points, who just don't produce at the NHL level.
You're a hater, bro.
I'm not a hater. I'm just calling it out.
You're an absolute hater.
I mean, there's a lot of honorable mentions of, even though it's again.
I have a new award, Best Gritty Award.
Okay, well, Jake Wallman's the only player who did the gritty.
Bang.
And I almost, what's funny for got that dog in him. I almost wanted to just like do a big middle finger to the fan base and pick Philip Zadina. I was like, nah.
Would have hated you
because even I don't believe that, but it would have just been fun to like because I obviously there are elements to Philip Zadina's game I've fallen in love with, but I didn't want to do that. Anyways,
player
guys,
you miss most award, Giovanni Smith.
Shut up. He's still in the playoffs. They're not dead yet. Game 7.
You're right. Game 7, baby.
Is that Sunday night? Because we're recording.
Yeah. By the time people are listening to this, that game will be over. Yeah.
I mean, who would have thought? Florida Panthers.
We're recording before that game for us. So.
Yeah. All right, guys, give us your answer to those awards. If you have any other awards that you think we should have said, put them in the comments and give us your answer. We'd love to hear your feedback. I love reading the comments and seeing what you guys have to say. But yeah, Scotty, Toronto Maple Leafs heading to round 2 for the first time since 2004.
Man, if you if you just had a video of the city of downtown Toronto, you would have thought they won the cup.
Okay, I'm gonna say something, and you you touched on it there. It is hilarious to me, and I get that they haven't done it since 2004. So there's an element of getting the monkey off your back, but it is hilarious to me that a team that is as stacked as the Toronto Maple Leafs, who should be eyeing the Stanley Cup, seem to be content. And I'm not saying like because they got the monkey off their back, they're just relieved. I've talked to several Maple Leaf fans who have told me that they got the monkey off their back this year. Next year's the cup run. I'm like, no. You shouldn't be
in
content.
the playoffs right now, bro.
You shouldn't be just content with winning the first round. Like that's like if the Detroit Red Wings, if the Detroit Red Wings made the playoffs, that's what we would be content with, because that's the team we would recognize. Or like the Islanders, they recognize that's not a team that was a cup contender. Yeah. You shouldn't be satisfied with winning in the first round. Like, yeah, you can be happy about it. You haven't done it in so long, but the fact that I'm hearing like next year's the real year, it's like, no, this year's the year.
You're literally still in the postseason, dude.
It's crazy to me. I saw an Onion article headline that's like NHL fandom mourns the loss of its only joke.
Unfortunately, it's still been 55 years since the last cup, so not the loss of a joke jokes at their expense.
We've lost one joke, but the other joke is how long it's been since a Canadian team's won the cup, which was
right. 90, we still got that too, yeah.
93, 94, one of those 2 years.
Yeah,
which one it was.
Yeah,
but I think it's hilarious with the amount of fans who are just like celebrating this, like you said, like they won the cup. It's like, yeah, well, I mean, this is good. This is what you should have been doing for like 5 years now.
Yeah, I think that's the reason that they're celebrating so much. Like if they were,
I get it, but at the same time,
if it had been 18 years and like they weren't a playoff team in those 18 years because they were like bad, and then now they're back and they won, like you'd see celebrations, but it'd be like, oh, they were a bad team and now they're a good team. But like they were in the playoffs essentially every year of that drought and just like genuinely couldn't win. So I do kind of get it, but at the same breath, it is very amusing seeing them like partying in the streets. Like it was a Saturday night too, which I'm sure didn't help anything, but just seeing them like really go as crazy as they did for a first round advance in the biggest postseason in like American sports is really crazy.
On the other side, it's crazy watching Tampa go from 3 straight Stanley Cup finals to being ousted in the first round. But I guess again, I mean, they were playing the Maple Leafs, and that's not an easy matchup. So I understand it.
They've played a lot of hockey. This was actually a point brought up by there's a hockey podcast I listen to called the Late Arrivals podcast, and they were talking about like when you look at their seasons, they've had the longest last 3 years in the sport.
Oh yeah,
because they play it to the cup every year. They've had the shortest, the least amount of downtime, the shortest off seasons. That roster is not like young anymore. It's just, I'm not saying they like, that's it and they just like ran out of gas and that was it. They still played the Maple Leafs tough and whatnot. That's still a great roster. But I mean, when you look over the last 3 years, no one has played more hockey and had less downtime than the Tampa Bay Lightning. So you knew that it was kind of not running on fumes, but like probably the end was near.
Doesn't help that Lalone exposes Vasilevsky's weakness on national television.
Yeah, for real.
That was really funny. And then Cooper's like, oh, he's just making things up. I'm like, Is that true? But regardless, I do think there's an episode to be had in the future too. If we're just, I
hope so,
about the Winnipeg Jets, because and Prashanth brought this up, the Kyle Connor situation, but just in general, I mean, people have been saying for a long time, like this was the make or break year for that roster. Like this is either the year they decide to go all in or they blow it up. And based on postseason press conference,
some comments made by staff and management alike.
Yeah, there's not a lot of happy faces in that locker room, so I think you could see some big changes. And if so, Red Wings should maybe jump on some of that if they want to really improve this roster, because that team has some players.
Absolutely.
So that's a topic for a future episode as well. So stay tuned. We'll probably get back to player grades tomorrow, but same time, right, Scotty? Oh, wait, first. I'm sorry.
We ball.
Same time.
So does Tyra Hirose.
Your team every day.
Every day.